Hello, Dr. Randi, and welcome to our podcast this week. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Every day is different. Every day is amazing. Every day is new. There's a large correlation between wonderment and mentally healthful people. I must be very mentally healthy because I'm in wonderment every single day.
All right, our topic today is eight common myths about how intimate relationships should be. So let's talk about this article.
Okay, I would like to. Every single person comes into a relationship with certain beliefs of how a relationship should be if it were a great relationship, or should be if it's going to last, or how people should act if they're going to make a relationship successful. And those beliefs may be just myths, but they observed them, or they were taught them, or they experienced them through the media. And the media has a huge amount of mythology about how relationships should be, and it's never that way in person. Never, 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 never. But when people come into a relationship having these expectations or entitlements or desires or illusions, fantasies, they get very, very wounded when their partner doesn't seem to feel the same way. And that partner is going to come in with his or her own set of expectations and entitlements of things that they have learned from the time they were small. So when people don't talk about defining things, especially in the early part of a relationship, the media is a sort of illusory way of describing relationships, combined with the sort of passion and excitement of the first few months. They sort of put it together in a ball and make everybody believe, oh, this is the way it's going to be. And then, of course, reality sets in, of course. And when people are in a new relationship, they devote so much energy and time to it, and they push everything else out of their lives until, of course, it starts demanding that they rearrange those priorities. And so at the beginning, they may actually get the feeling that we're in sync, and we think the same, we feel the same, we want the same. But as time goes by, of course, those myths get in the way of looking at reality and facing reality and saying, this is what this really is, this relationship, and how can we make it the closest we can to what we want by looking at each of our individual experiences and blending them, negotiating things, working things through. They
Hmm.
have to sort of create a relationship, but they came in thinking it would be sort of ordered on Amazon.
Right.
To my knowledge, so far, you can't do that, but you never know. With AI, you might be able to order a relationship on Amazon. But interestingly enough, that's always done on compatibility. Even Match.com has a sexuality.com. Helen Fisher's part of it. And it's supposed to be this little quiver. If you do well on that, you're going to like each other sexually, but you might not like each other any other way. So I'm going to talk about some of these myths. There are dozens and dozens of them. But I figured I'd come up with about 5, 6, 7, 8 of them that people often come into relationships with, to just whet people's appetites, so they can sort of start thinking about, well, what did we come in with, and did we ever talk about what we thought a relationship should be?
Hmm.
Do we ever talk about, or we just continue living disappointments and getting mad at each other? Who knows?
Right.
So let's start with the first one. There is only one true love. Boy, is that a myth. First of all, 50% of marriages end in divorce.
Hmm.
And you can love lots of different people. It's such a random thing that you meet the person you meet and think, this is the only person I could ever love in my whole life. And once I've been with that person, I can never love again if I lose that person. But most people have loved sequentially. They've loved in different ways. They've loved children, or they've loved sports, or they've loved family, or they've loved. Love is a big, big, big overall experience.
Hmm.
So when people think, well, true love is true love, it's the only one. Now that I found you, as I said, if we lose each other, I will never, ever, ever have another love again. And it's not true. I mean, there are occasional love stories that people are together 60 years and they die holding hands and things like that. But that's pretty rare. That's pretty rare. The issue, of course, is if you learn from each relationship, you don't just keep making the same mistake. Because we know that second marriages are less likely to work, and third are less likely to work than that. It's just people don't learn. But anyway, getting past this thing, there's only one person I could love. And somebody may say that, if you are the kind of person that really loves, you'll sacrifice everything for a relationship. Somebody else might say, your personal dreams are more important to me than us, because if you don't meet those personal dreams, you'll never be happy. I mean, people have all different ways of defining what love is about. And they need to really be connected and close to each other. Sometimes people look back at the true love at the very end of it. Oh, I guess you were my only true love. I didn't really realize it, but look, we've been together for 40 years, so I guess you are in that sense. But I've known people who literally loved deeply, left each other, married one person, sometimes two, one time in my career, three, and then come back to each other later on and realize that they were the really number one true loves, and they're deliriously happy from then on. Yeah. Sometimes a high school romance, in reunions, my goodness, college reunions or high school reunions, people sometimes find their original love and leave everything behind and go back to that person. So who on earth can determine whether in some kind of expectation, it's a myth that you can only love one person. It's a myth that you will love one person forever. And it just is a myth. And so people really have to know the great relationship, or they create. Well, I'll talk about that in a little minute. The second one is, once you found your person, forever is guaranteed. Wow, is that a myth? Because if you thought forever was guaranteed, any investment you would make in your life, a business investment, school, whatever is guaranteed forever. Forever is made up of thousands of moments now that you recreate and redesign and redo and rebuild. And forever is something, as I said, people look back on forever. There is no future. There is only the creation of the beauty of the moment, and millions of those moments create the future. And the past helps us learn what to not do again and what to try to do better. But absolutely, forever is never guaranteed. Great relationships are created anew every single day. And successful partners face their limitations. They work around them as much as they can. Sometimes there's deal breakers. Sometimes people get allergic to people over time, or sometimes people create new interests and new possibilities, and they want their partner to kind of go along with them. And then in the myth of that, oh, of course they will go along with them, of course. But they don't. So there is no forever. There is only the beauty of the moment. And people who really love each other deeply, they treasure that sacredness. Okay, number 3. People say, oh, fighting is natural, good for relationship, everybody should fight. And in reality, challenging each other to hone your ideas and hone your opinions and to ferret out maybe deeper issues that's always good. Challenging to grow, challenging to expand into the world of another human being so that your world becomes larger. Fighting in some kind of healthy way, challenging, fighting, interpreting, rethinking things, that's very good. But that's not what people do when they fight. They normally rehash over and over and over again. They have the same circular arguments. They argue about things. There are some cultures where people actually fight hard and that becomes sexual, because pleasure and pain are very close together in the brain, and sometimes people have to fight to do that. But in reality, for most people, unless fighting is healthy, unless it's taking people to a new place, it's not hitting below the belt, it's not invalidating, it's not hateful, it's not explosions, and then you just forget about it the next day. Especially publicly. That's terrible when people fight publicly and they take each other out. That is not healthy. So when people say, well, you need to fight, yes, but not in a way that makes the scars the relationship and it doesn't grow, and it scars it and it doesn't grow. No, that kind of fighting is really bad. But challenging to enhance views can energize a great relationship. Fighting uselessly, as I said, and I will say it over and over, can actually be a substitution for intimacy. When people start to lose each other, they fight as a way of staying connected. But the fighting is damaging the relationship at the same time. So when people come in and they say, we never fight, isn't that better? Or we always fight, isn't that good? Well, guess what? There's a lot more going on than that. And you'll never get to the deeper issues that create arguments if you fight in ways that are destructive to the relationship. Never. Okay, number 4. This is really important. People think that in great relationships, they have this myth that sexual chemistry is a must. Well, often at the beginning, unless people are friends for a long time before they become lovers, the new months, the 3, 4, 6 months of a new relationship are pretty passionate, they're pretty sexual. They maintain the circular process of great sexuality, which is courtship and arousal and orgasm and pillow talk. Then that pillow talks take them back into courtship again. After a while, life interferes and people may not have enough time, or they have children, or they have two jobs, or they're tired, or other things interfere and interrupt that sexuality.
Mhm.
If people have a wonderful connection at the beginning, they usually can bring it back. But in almost all relationships, people find new things that they didn't anticipate. Maybe they have unequal appetites. Maybe some people like to have sex all the time, and some people don't. And you have to sort of work your way into what's best for both of you. You have to make compromises and things like that. But unexpected challenges in the relationship can diminish or deter a sexual relationship. What if you have God forbid, an autistic child, or a kid that gets sick, or an aging parent that has to live with you, and you only have a 2-bedroom place and there's a thin wall? I mean, there are ways that can make sexuality between people much more difficult. So it's more important to some people than others. Your style of connection may be different, but just to say that it's absolute requirement is a myth. It's truly a myth, and it makes a lot of people feel inadequate.
Mhm.
It feels like there's something wrong with them. They should somehow be more sexual, and they should, be looking forward to. I was just reading this morning on one of my medical sites that they have found out that people who have very, very low sexual desire may actually have a brain malfunction. And they just are coming out with a new medication that might change that. But other people are very comfortable having very little sexuality in their relationship. Other issues become more important, like resiliency and integrity and devotion and family and causes or dreams. They become more important than whether or not you really have to have a hot relationship. Most people, by the way, who are unfaithful do have sex at home. That myth that, men stray or women stay because they weren't getting enough sex at home is pretty much not the real reason. People get bored. They lose interest in each other. They don't have closeness anymore. They've stopped doing things together. They're not happy. There's no laughter in the house for 10 years. There's no sex ever if there's no laughter. If joyfulness and playfulness is gone, there ain't going to be anything else happening. It's just not going to happen. Some relationships and I've seen many of them end with the sex that's great, but they can't live with each other. So they'll get back together, for years, just because they can't find anybody else they're more sexually compatible with. But they can't live together. They can't stand each other, but the sex is still there, which is very interesting. Some people, they replace their sexual connection, not completely, but with a deeper kind of love, a more sacred love, a more spiritual love, and they're closer than ever. So as long as people are comfortable with each other, affectionate, sweet, kind, tender, supportive, the sex can be less often. But if they can get away, for a weekend and get the folks to watch the kids or something like that, and rent a place with a spa, well, yeah, and those feelings come back, they're fine. They're just fine. So the myth that sex always has to be number one and important is truly a myth. It just doesn't exist. People will change partners to reinforce that myth one after another. It's like one of the things I often say: if you've got the same act, you better change audiences, right?
Yeah.
Okay, number 5. Forgive and forget is the way to get past conflicts. No, it isn't. Remember and let go, maybe, but when you have a bad fight and then you say, I forgive you and we'll forgive, we just are absolutely doomed to have the same fight again. It's not the best way to resolve difficulties. You don't forgive and forget. As I said, you remember, you learn, you debrief, not rehash. You go over what happened. You decide how you're going to do it better next time. And then you put that into motion. But just to forgive and forget it, no, you have to remember, you have to learn, you have to change.
Mhm.
And embrace a process that works better. No amount of apology, by the way, or promise ever works if there's been some egregious betrayal, like an infidelity, or like gambling, or like, anything that really deeply wounds the other person. If you say, I'm sorry, sorry over a long period of time just becomes lies because people can't come through with them. So here's a really interesting thought that maybe some people will appreciate it. If you've done an egregious error to the person you love, and you have one person who feels guilty and the other person who feels wounded,
Mm-hmm.
the person who feels guilty will make much more, will be much more influential in healing the process if he or she kneels in front of his or her own God or God light or set of ethics or morals and realizes that that person has betrayed themselves by going away from what they believed in and away from what they knew they should be. That's much more encouraging to the partner that's been wounded than if that person says, I'm sorry to them, because it's not going to hold. So forgive and forget isn't going to work, but remember and let go, and then promise to your own integrity, to your own God of integrity, that you will never do something like that again, is the only thing that really works. Okay, 6. It's always better to solve a problem right away. Well, my grandmother came from the old country. And of course, there were terrible things that happened to people who were poor. And so they never knew if they had another day coming. So never go to bed angry, always solve every single situation. That's a myth. That's a myth because sometimes you just don't feel like solving it. You're just pissed off. You want to sleep on the couch, or you want to make some kind of strong statement. You're really angry. And if you try to solve it at that time, it's just going to go worse. It's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. People get more defensive. They yell at each other. People cry. It doesn't work. Sometimes it's really a good idea to just separate out and cool down. Look at where you're accountable. Look at where you were disappointed. Look at the other person, what that person did or what you did, and could it be done better? Sometimes you just need to cool off. Because many of fights are just revisions of things, as I said before, that didn't ever get settled. They never got settled correctly. And if you keep trying to fight while you're fighting and everybody's hot and angry and upset, you aren't going to get anywhere. So that myth that you should solve all problems right away, it's a myth. Really a good idea to understand that doesn't work. Okay, number 7. This is really funny to me, funny in a sweet way. There was a song called My Funny Valentine. Don't change a thing for me. Always be who you are. I will love you completely forever the way you are. That is a total myth. It's totally unrealistic. It's important to acknowledge, your partner's limitations and fears and traumas and other bad relationship experiences. Of course, you want to understand and support and figure out what they did wrong and hope they won't do that to you instead. But I don't know a single person who hasn't tried to influence, coerce, seduce, plead, direct, control the other partner to become closer to what you want them to be. It's always going to be there. It's just being a human being. Could you be a little nicer? Could you stop trying being late all the time? Everybody tries to control everybody else, but it's influencing in the direction you want. It's not necessarily mean or dogmatic. Well, why wouldn't you stop trying to get that person to be closer to what makes you happy at the same time as you're trying to get closer to what makes them happy? So just because your partner tries to get you to be different doesn't mean they don't love you. It is also important, of course, is, would you be happy with that person if he or she never changed? I wrote an article called Would You Marry Me Again If You Knew Me Today? And it's interesting to watch people hedge on that a little bit before they say the right thing to their spouse. But in reality, everybody knows that the definition of neuroses is keep things are going to change, and they don't change. So underneath it, of course, you have to love the person you're with for who they are, with their bumps and warts. It's just the way you are. But if you ask people to stop trying to change people, that's a myth. That is never going to happen. You will say to your children till the day you die, be sure to drive carefully. Everybody's always trying to influence.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. It's a myth to think that everything's okay exactly the way it is. Okay, our last one. Love can conquer all. If we had the right kind of love, we'd be able to solve every single problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's not all people see love the same way. Every partner may be doing the best he or she can. Maybe they don't feel loved by the way you try to love them, like that wonderful book of all the love languages. But there's more than 5, but certainly certain people show love. Will I wash your car? Will I make you your favorite dinner? Well, I wasn't even hungry. In that sense, love doesn't conquer all. It conquers what makes people love each other. It's just kindness, commitment, Understanding, renewal, appreciation, hanging in there, not quitting, trying over and over again to make things better. But that's true of everything, even if you owned a business. If you're a mom and pop shop and everybody else is using AI, you better figure it out, because you're not going to stick around. They cost, and you get things in return for them. Relationships are no different. So you have to be able to recreate the sacredness, recreate the joy, recreate the commitment. You have to do that in any relationship. And many, many times people leave a relationship and later on tell me I had the best thing in the world going for me. I just wasn't willing to work hard enough for it.
Yeah.
So love doesn't conquer all. Commitment does. Devotion and sacrifice and passion, and that's what keeps relationships going. And that's what fuels love, and that's what creates love. Love doesn't make everything okay. Making everything okay keeps love intact. It's the other way around. And it has to work for both partners. People, as I said, have different needs and different desires. So if you explore with your partner what myths he or she was taught as children, ask them what they were told to expect out of a relationship, whether it was realistic or not. Tell them just to ask them what they expected, what they came in, because that's what's going to create their disappointments. That's what's going to create their disillusionments. They're going to create their sense of fail. I didn't live up to something, or my partner didn't live up to something. And you have to face what is real. So if you look for ways that your relationship can redefine and deepen the ways you actually do love each other, that love will grow. And as I said, the caring and the way you are as a human being to the person that you care most about, that's what keeps your love alive. Love is not some potion you can drink that makes everything okay. So are those interesting myths to you?
Well, it's I don't know if it's myth, but it's kind of like the truth.
Well, the truth is the other side of the coin of myth. Yes, you just reality. You face reality, and you're grateful to be together.
Right. Well, some people, live far or don't see each other if it's an overseas worker or in the military. So a lot of things,
Absolutely.
are basically not there, right?
Absolutely.
But they're still committed. I mean, in terms of not.
And they maintain that love in their hearts, and they share it with each other, and they keep each other up to date. And not all relationships can work that way, But I have this absolute joy in my heart for the people I've known who cared deeply for each other, but no longer wanted to be together,
Really?
and only wanted the best for each other. It's like they kiss each other on the forehead. Godspeed. Thank you for being with me. I'm so grateful I had the opportunity to know you.
Yeah.
And take care of yourself. I have actually seen that, Ryan, and it's quite beautiful.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. All right, let's that was a good article, or at least a podcast. We'll end it here. We'll post this on our YouTube channel, and where can they find you, Dr. Randy?
Okay, and we'll talk again next week. I'm looking forward to it. And oh, by the way, I will be posting my link for getting to this YouTube channel, but you can go to Randi Gunther YouTube and you will get directly to it and read all the other YouTube. And also, please feel free to contact me at randygunther@cox.net, all lowercase, one word, Randy with an I, and I will always respond.